The city of Chicago never truly sleeps, but some places are meant to stay forgotten. I had learned this the hard way. I worked as an overnight security guard at a grand old hotel on the north side, a building that had once been a crown jewel of luxury in the roaring 1920s. Its gold-trimmed lobbies, crystal chandeliers, and marble floors were legendary in old postcards and photographs that lined the walls of the management office. But time had not been kind. The building had been converted into a budget apartment complex in the 1970s, and over the decades, most of the apartments had been abandoned. Windows were broken, wallpaper peeled in jagged strips, and the smell of mildew mixed with old wood lingered in every corridor. The first night I worked there, the building felt alive in a way I hadn't anticipated. The air was heavy, charged with something intangible, an energy that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. My shift was simple, at least on paper. Monitor the cameras, patrol the lobby, check that doors were locked, and report any unusual activity. The one instruction that stuck out, oddly enough, was this: never enter room number 402. Management didn't explain why, and I didn't ask. I had learned that sometimes curiosity could be dangerous in this line of work. My shift started at 11:30 p.m. For the first hour, nothing happened. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound, accompanied by the faint drip of water somewhere deep in the old plumbing. Occasionally, my boots echoed across the marble floors, a reminder of how empty the building truly was. I checked each hallway, each locked apartment, and every stairwell, trying to convince myself that it was just an old, empty building playing tricks on my mind. At 12:45 a.m., the first anomaly appeared. A camera in the lobby flickered, static. The feed from the east hallway froze. Usually, the security system had minor glitches, but tonight, the freezing felt different, deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, adjusted my vest, and cautiously approached the hallway. The moment I stepped under the dim, flickering hallway lights, I felt a chill crawl over my skin. Not a normal cold, it was heavy, invasive, almost like the air itself was pressing against my body. I moved, slowly, flashlight in hand, listening to every creak of the wooden floorboards and groan of the building. For a moment I thought I saw movement, a dark shape crouching behind a pillar. My pulse spiked. I stopped, holding my breath, and focused on the shadows. Nothing. I continued down the hallway, my steps echoing unnaturally in the silence. The old banquet hall stretched out before me, its mirrors reflecting my flashlight beam in odd angles. For a fleeting moment I thought the reflection in the glass wasn't my own. It twisted, bent, and moved differently. I shook my head. I was tired. That had to be it. Just fatigue, playing tricks on my mind. Then the intercom buzzed. Soft static, but it wasn't random. It sounded like it carried a voice, barely audible, almost a whisper.
Don't go upstairs.
My stomach turned cold. I froze in place, flashlight shaking slightly in my hand. I remembered the warning about room number 402. Could it be connected? Could someone or something be waiting up there? Against every instinct, I climbed the grand staircase to the 4th floor. The wooden steps creaked and groaned under my weight. Every sound seemed amplified, bouncing across the empty hallways. As I approached room number 402, I noticed the hallway was different from the others. Dust covered the floors, but there were fresh footprints, narrow and bare, leading directly to the door. I stopped. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain it would give me away. The door to room number 402 was slightly ajar, more of a crack than a full opening. A faint yellow light flickered from inside, weak and uneven, casting long shadows that stretched toward the hallway. I hesitated, feeling a wave of nausea and fear, then pushed the door open slowly. The room seemed empty. At first glance, Everything appeared normal: broken furniture, old curtains, tattered by time, peeling wallpaper. But then I noticed a chair, one lone chair, facing the corner. No one sitting in it, but it looked like someone had been there just moments before. I moved closer. My flashlight trembled in my hand. On the wall beside the chair, letters were scratched into the plaster. They were small, deliberate, as if someone had used a nail or a knife. They read, "I see you." My stomach sank. I stepped back. The temperature dropped sharply. My breath became visible, even in the faint light. Shadows in the corners deepened unnaturally, twisting like living things. Then came the yoshang, sound, a low whisper, soft and deliberate, echoing from the far corner. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone carried menace, patience, and amusement all at once. The chair moved, slowly, turning, as though it had been occupied by someone invisible. My pulse raced. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body felt heavy, reluctant to obey. I took a cautious step back. The whispering grew louder, circling me, filling the room. I stumbled out of the room, into the hallway, and froze. The hallway seemed to stretch farther than it should have. My flashlight caught glimpses of movement in the shadows, dark shapes, flickering at the edges of my vision, retreating when I looked directly at them. I ran down the hallway, almost tripping over the warped wooden floors. My flashlight bounced wildly, illuminating peeling wallpaper, broken doors, and the ghostly outlines of forgotten furniture. The whispering followed me, not just in room number 402, but all around the fourth floor. Names, phrases, laughter, indistinct, yet unmistakably human. I reached the grand staircase and bolted down to the lobby. My legs burned. Every nerve screamed. When I reached the main floor, the lobby seemed normal to normal. The air conditioning hummed as if nothing had happened. I grabbed my radio to call dispatch, but my hands were shaking too much to hold it steady. Minutes later, a pair of police officers arrived, responding to my panicked call. They searched the building. No footprints, no signs of entry, nothing in room number 402. The scratches on the wall were gone, wiped clean. Cameras revealed only my flashlight beam bouncing across the empty hallway. Nothing else. Later, an older employee pulled me aside and whispered, "Room number 402. It's not the first time someone's seen it. The man who lived there years ago, he went missing one night. Nobody ever found him. But people who work here at night, they say he's still around, watching, waiting." I quit that night. Even now, I can't walk past abandoned hotels without my stomach twisting into knots. I think about room number 402, the chair in the corner, the whispers and the footprints that led nowhere. Some places remember the Shia, people who die within them. And some of those places don't forgive those who intrude. Years later, I learned that the building was scheduled for demolition. But every time I passed it during the day, I could swear I saw a shadow in the corner of a broken window, one that mimicked my movement when I walked past. I've never gone back, and I never will, because some rooms are alive, and they never let go. New York City never truly sleeps. Its streets, skyscrapers, and subway tunnels pulse with life at all hours. But there are places beneath the city forgotten, sealed away, that were never meant for human presence. One of those places became my nightmare. I had been hired as an overnight security guard for a municipal property contractor. My job was simple: monitor abandoned properties, ensure no trespassers entered, and log any unusual activity. Most nights were uneventful: empty streets, locked doors, and the occasional stray homeless person wandering the blocks. But this assignment was different. The Chambers Street subway station. Abandoned for decades, it sat beneath the city like a secret waiting. to be unearthed. Rumor had it that the station had been closed after a series of unexplained accidents, maintenance workers disappearing, lights flickering without cause, and strange sounds picked up on the old intercom systems. Management's instructions were clear: monitor the entrances, check cameras regularly, and never go into the station alone. I understood the risks, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to experience. I arrived at the station around 11:30 p.m. The streets above were quiet, the occasional car passing like a ghost. The entrance to the station was rusted, graffiti covering every metal panel. The smell hit me immediately: damp concrete, mold, and the lingering scent of oil and decay. I checked my flashlight, handheld camera, and radio, then sat in the small security shack beside the main entrance. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. The city above hummed faintly, the occasional distant rumble of a train echoing underground. My patrols were routine checking gates, sweeping the platforms, and ensuring no unauthorized personnel had entered. The station was silent, too silent. At 12:45 a.m., the first anomaly appeared. A motion detector near platform 3 triggered. My body sank. Usually, motion sensors are sensitive, but this time, it felt different, deliberate, intentional. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously approached the platform. The first thing I noticed was the air, heavy, thick, stale, yet somehow carrying the faint metallic scent of something else, blood, perhaps, though I hoped I was imagining it. My boots echoed unnaturally on the cracked tiles as I moved toward the platform edge. Then I saw the footprints, bare, small, and wet. They led from the far end of the platform toward a maintenance tunnel. My heart skipped a beat. No one should have been down here. Only authorized maintenance crews had access, and none were scheduled. I radioed dispatch. Motion detected at platform 3. Investigating. Static, no response. I followed the footprints, flashlight trembling in my hands. The tunnel stretched ahead like a maw opening in the darkness. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, but something curiosity, maybe foolishness, pushed me forward. As I entered the tunnel, the temperature dropped. Cold air washed over me, carrying whispers that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. I froze. The whispers weren't intelligible at first, just faint murmurs, unintelligible syllables that raised goosebumps across my arms. But then they began to form. Words, names I didn't recognize, old names, names of people who had disappeared from this city decades ago. A shadow moved along the wall, tall, indistinct. It didn't walk, it glided, like a mist taking human form. I swung my flashlight toward it, but it disappeared whenever I tried to focus on it directly. Then the whispering stopped. Silence pressed in from all sides, suffocating in its intensity. And that's when I heard the low, guttural voice, deep and echoing. "You shouldn't be here." My flashlight flickered violently. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping it. The tunnel seemed longer than it should have been, stretching into darkness that my light couldn't penetrate. My chest tightened. Panic surged. Footsteps sounded behind me, slow, deliberate, mirroring my own pace. I turned. Nothing. The platform entrance was empty. The footprints I had seen earlier were gone, yet the sense of being followed persisted, growing heavier with each step. I began moving faster, trying to escape the tunnel. My flashlight illuminated broken tiles, discarded trash, and rusted railings. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting unnaturally, stretching taller than physics allowed. Every movement seemed alive, watching, waiting. Then I reached the old stairwell leading to the street. My hands shook as I pressed the railing. The metal was icy. The whispers returned, louder this time, overlapping into a chorus, a cacophony of voices chanting in unison. Names, dates, fragments of sentences. He came. He saw. He stayed. My heart pounded. I run up the stairs. The shadows moved with me. They multiplied, gliding along the railings and walls, a mass of darkness that seemed to breathe. At the top, I reached the emergency exit door. It was locked. I tried the handle repeatedly. Nothing. Behind. And me, the whispering grew into laughter, low and mocking, filling the stairwell. My radio crackled to life. Dispatch, but all I heard was static interspersed with faint human voices, repeating my name over and over. Desperation took over. I ran toward the main entrance, pounding on the door until it finally gave way. Cold, night air hit my face like a whip. I didn't stop to look back. I run across the empty streets, car lights flickering in the distance. My pulse was deafening in my ears. Weeks later, I returned with a police officer and an experienced urban explorer. They searched every corner of the station. Nothing, no footprints, no signs of entry, no evidence of the shadows or whispers I had experienced. The maintenance tunnels were empty, silent, normal. The cameras showed only me, flashlight bouncing across the tiles. No shadows. Nothing supernatural, at least according to them. But the truth is, I knew what I had seen, and I knew the shadows were real. Old city records revealed the station's history. Several workers had disappeared mysteriously over the decades. Some construction accidents were listed as unexplained deaths. Witnesses described shapes that seemed to follow them in the tunnels, shapes that had no body, no substance, just darkness. I quit that night. I couldn't go back. The city had given me a gift, a glimpse into a part of the world that was never meant for living beings. Even now, when I walk past an abandoned subway entrance or hear the low rumble of trains beneath my feet, I feel the presence again, watching, patient, waiting, whispering, always whispering, because some places, some stations never forget. And those that enter, especially at night, never leave untouched. Detroit's industrial districts are strange at night. Rusted machinery, broken windows, and empty lots stretch as far as the eye can see. Some buildings are abandoned, left to rot, while others sit in waiting, holding memories that no one wants to touch. One of these buildings became my nightmare. I had been hired as an overnight security watchman for an old auto factory on the outskirts of Detroit. The company that owned it intended to renovate it someday, but for now, it was nothing more than a rusting skeleton of metal beams, concrete floors, and abandoned machinery. My instructions were straightforward. Patrol the premises, ensure that no one entered, and document anything unusual. It seemed simple, safe, but the factory had a reputation, whispered in employee circles and online forums, alike of being different at night. I arrived at the lot just before 11 p.m. The moon hung low, casting long shadows over the cracked asphalt and overgrown weeds. The building loomed like a tomb, windows broken and dark. The wind rustled, scraps of paper across the lot, carrying faint metallic smells, oil, rust, and something sweeter, coppery. My body churned. I tried to convince myself it was just nerves. Inside, the factory smelled of rust, oil, and decay. The first hour was uneventful. I checked the main floor, logging doors, machinery, and empty office. Occasionally, my footsteps echoed too loudly, bouncing off the metal catwalks and making shadows twist along the walls. The building seemed aware of me. Every sound I made was amplified. Every creak responded. At 12:03 a.m., a motion sensor near the south loading dock triggered. My pulse spiked. Normally, the sensors were sensitive, but tonight it felt deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, radio in hand, and approached the dock. The first thing I noticed was the footprints, wet, bare, heavy. They led from the lot toward the factory entrance. I froze. Only authorized personnel had keys, and none were scheduled. My body sank. Against every instinct, I entered the building. The air inside seemed heavier than outside, carrying a faint whisper of voices I couldn't place. My flashlight beam bounced across the broken machinery, illuminating shadows that seemed to move independently of reality. Then came the sound, scraping, slow, deliberate, echoing across the basement floors, like someone or something was dragging a body across concrete. I followed the sound to a staircase leading to the basement. The railing was icy cold under my hands. Every step groaned and shuddered beneath me. At the bottom I saw them, footprints, hundreds of them, leading from the far corner of the basement toward the service doors. They were precise, measured, and wet as if someone or something had been moving barefoot through water. Then the whispering began. Names, dates, warnings, the voices overlapped, building a low, suffocating chorus. They spoke of people long gone, workers who had vanished in the factory decades ago. I recognized a few names from old news reports. Injuries, accidents, disappearances. But some were new, unknown to me, as if the building itself had recorded lives I had no knowledge of. A shadow moved across the wall, tall, distorted. It glided rather than walked. My flashlight caught glimpses of its face, empty sockets where eyes should have been, hollow, staring, unblinking. I stumbled, backward, panic rising. Then another shadow appeared behind me, and another, dozens of them floating and stretching across the basement floor. They didn't walk, they hovered, moving in unison, a living mass of darkness that seemed to respond to my presence. "You shouldn't be here," a voice boomed, low and guttural, coming from everywhere and nowhere. My flashlight fell from my trembling hands, rolling across the floor. The shadows followed its beam, merging and splitting, surrounding me in a cage of darkness. My legs felt like lead. My mind screamed to escape, but every step forward was met with resistance, not physical, but psychological, like the air itself was thickening to hold me in place. Desperation drove me to the service door. I shoved with all my strength. It wouldn't budge. Behind me, the whispers escalated into laughter. Human, yet unnatural, echoing off the concrete walls in a rhythm that didn't match reality. I turned, looking for another exit. The elevator shaft. I sprinted toward it, pressing the button repeatedly. The doors opened slowly. I jumped in, hitting the ground floor button over and over. As the doors closed, I turned toward the staircase I had descended. Shadows clung to the edges of the stairwell, tall and writhing, faceless yet observing every movement. Their presence pressed into me like a physical weight. The elevator shuddered and descended. I felt every creak, every vibration, as if the building itself were alive, resisting my escape. At the ground floor, I bolted out of the elevator and ran blindly through the factory, crashing through crates, tripping over broken pipes, and finally reaching a service exit. Cold night. Air struck my face. I didn't stop. I ran until the factory was behind me, dark and silent. The following day, I returned with the police. They searched every floor, every corner, every basement, passage. Nothing. No footprints, no evidence of shadows, no trace of wet concrete or water where the footprints had been. The cameras recorded only me, my flashlight bouncing across empty halls. No shadows. Nothing supernatural, according to them. Weeks later, I stumbled across old records. During a labor dispute decades ago, several workers had disappeared from the basement. Some files suggested management covered up injuries or deaths. But one account described something chilling. Workers reported shapes moving independently of any human, shadows that lingered in the factory long after people had left. Some believed the building itself had absorbed them, feeding off their fear, keeping them there. I quit my night security job that day. I couldn't risk going back. The city had shown me a glimpse of something ancient, patient, and cruel. Even now, I avoid abandoned industrial buildings. Sometimes when I drive past one at night, I see shadows moving in the broken windows, echoes of long-dead workers. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear the whispers, names, warnings, laughter coming from the darkness beneath the street. Because some places are alive. They collect memories, fears, and souls, and they do not forgive those who trespass.